Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I just couldn't resist starting my video like this because the sun is shining, the sky is bright blue, birds are chirping and spring is finally here. But that's of course not why you're here, so let's go back inside and dive into some literature. So I've already filmed a couple of videos for this channel, but I thought it would be fun to film one in which you get to know me just a little bit better. And for that I'm going to use the classics book tag. So the first question is, what is a classic that you really didn't like? And I wanted to pick one that I actually read from cover to cover, and then I have to say is The Trial by Franz Kafka. And the reason for that is probably because I really didn't understand it when I read it back in high school. What I remember from it is that a guy is facing a trial and he doesn't know what crime he committed. He actually didn't commit a crime and he's just wandering around these empty streets facing that trial. So the second question is, what is your favorite time period? And for me, I have to say that's postmodernism, just because I understand the culture and the norms and value better because they more closely relate to our current society, but also because the use of English is a lot more modern and that's just easier to read for me. But maybe I just haven't come across the right classic from an older period just yet. The third question is, what is your favorite fairy tale? Now I have to be honest and say that I'm not that familiar to fairy tales. Of course they were read to me when I was a little girl and there were TV programs around those fairy tales, the Disney movies of course, but I don't think I've read them as an adult. Based on what I do know of fairy tales, I think my all-time favorite is Aladdin. Now, if you're watching this and you are interested in reading fairy tales, then I would definitely recommend you to check out Jen Campbell's channel. I will link it down below because she has amazing videos and some of them also are about fairy tales, how they are the same and different across different cultures, how they evolve over time, and it's really interesting. So go check out her channel. The fourth question is, what is your favorite classic? And without a doubt, that's George Orwell's 1984. And it's not just my favorite classic, it is my favorite book of all time. And that is because George Orwell does an amazing job in portraying this grim, cruel-like atmosphere, and the story gripped me from the first page all the way up until the end. And I will show you why.
How often or on what system the thought police plugged in on any individual wire was guesswork. It was even conceivable that they watched everybody, all the time. But at any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to live, did live, from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and except in darkness, every movement scrutinized.
Question 5 is, of which classic are you embarrassed that you didn't read it yet? There's no need to be embarrassed about your reading, ever. So next question. Question 6 is, what is the top 5 of classics that you want to read in the near future? So one of the books that I want to read is Crime and Punishment. And it's written by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly. Another book that I want to read is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. By now I've heard a couple of experts talk about her use of language and that really made me curious. I also want to read The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Because I watched this lecture on reliable and unreliable narrators, and this book is supposedly a very good example of that, so I'm very curious about it. So another book that I really want to read, but I think it will take me a couple of years before I have enough confidence to tackle that bad boy, is The Ulysses by James Joyce. And the last classic that I'm very curious about is Discovery of Heaven by Harry Mulisch, or as we would call it in Holland, De Ontdekking van de Hemel. But it's one of the only Dutch books that ranks really high on the list of best books ever written. So of course, being a Dutchie myself, I have to read that work. Question 7 is, what is your favorite movie that is based on a classic? And for me, that is Bridget Jones' Diary. I love that movie. It's based on Pride and Prejudice and I think I've watched it like 100 times or so. Question 8, what classic made the biggest impression on you? Well, obviously for me that would be 1984, but I already told you a little bit about that book. So the second book that made a huge impression on me is The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. And the reason I picked up that book was because my Dutch language teacher told us that after that book was published, and it's in the 1700 somethings, there was this huge wave of suicide that was caused by people who read that book and then committed suicide. And I was just mind blown by that. How could a book have such a profound impact on people? And I was curious because of that. And that is why I read it for my German language literature list. So I read it in the original language in German. I cannot remember what exactly it was that made that impact on me. I read the book about 13 years ago, I think. But what I do remember is when I came across the passage in which suicide is described, it was such an emotional language and it was so powerfully written that I can imagine indeed that when people struggle and suffer from depression or something like that, that this book then and that segment of text really resonates with them, and that really made an impact on me. Question 9 is, what is the best book that helps you understand the classics better? And for me, that is this bad boy, The Northern Introduction to Literature by Kelly J. Mays. And she did such an amazing job. The book is divided into 3 sections, novels, poetry and plays. And there are so many examples and questions in it that it really is so helpful. So I hope you liked this video and that you want to support this channel by giving this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and I'll be back in about a week with a very exciting new video because I'm going to try something new. I hope to see you in a week. Bye!